Hello everyone, my name is Song Yu Yin. My meter number is 261407. So my topic presentation for today is inter-Korean conflict. So this is the effort of the Silla Kingdom where they slowly bonded the land of the Korean Peninsula together and formed a unified Korean Peninsula in the 7th century. However, when coming to the Joseon dynasty, they were facing Mongol invasion and also Japan annexation, and soon was defeated and placed under the occupations and annexations of Japan in 1910. And Japan continued to rule Korea for 35 years. And in 1945, when the World War II ended, the Japan surrendered to the Allies when Japan also signed an agreement with the US and Soviet Union to divide the Korean Peninsula into two different zones at a 38 parallel line which form North and South Korea. The reason of the Korea conflict erupted was due to several factors. The first one will be the incompatible ideology. The North and South Korea government are having different ideology under the influence of the Soviet and also the US. Both of the government wish to expand their ideology across the division line, which form an ideology contest between the North and South. The second source of the problem is an incompatible goal on the unification. So for this, both Korea have an incompatible goal over the demand of the unifications to add on their terms and without concessions. And the third will be the incompatible security interest. So for this, South Korea's security interest is to deter attack from the North by strengthening the US and South Korea military alliance. And the US presence in the peninsula will seriously threaten the security of the North Korea, especially when the South Korea was under the cover of the nuclear deterrent of the US. So right now we will move to the conflict dynamic. So in the pre-conflict phases, the political tension between the inter-Korea was intensified when they are having incompatible goals on the unification. Then when it comes to the confrontation state, when the South Union and US withdraw themselves from the Korea Peninsula, the North tend to march across the division line and invading the South Korea. And then come to the crisis stage, the war was intervened by the US after the UN passed a resolution to allow intervention from other states. The China soon they joined the war and sided North Korea to maintain the 38 division line. And then the outcome for the war is the Korean War has turned out becomes a situation of stalemate with both sides tend to make peace and engaging in negotiation while fought with each other. Then the North Korea and China and also the US they signed an armistice agreement in 1953 to symbolize the war ended. Then we will talk on the solution approach taken in resolving the Korea conflict. So the first approach is the sunshine policy, and it is served as a cooperative engagement framework to reduce the negative attitude of the North Korea toward the South. And second, we have the six-party talks, and the six-party talk is focused on the North Korea nuclear crisis. The six parties involved in the talks are Japan, US, the South Korea, North Korea, China, and Russia. And next, the third approach is the UN economic sanctions. When the six-party talk is failed, UN try to impose a harsh economic sanctions on the North Korea to cut down their financial source and reduce the state income. The fourth approach is the dialogue, which is the Inter-Korea Summit. In 2018, the Inter-Korea Summit held in the Pyongyang, and when the South Korea President Moon Jae-in and also the Kim Jong-un has signed an agreement to prevent and avoid the military confrontation in the Korean Peninsula. And now we are in the conflict analysis of the Gautam-Modern conflict triangle. So the conflict triangle of the Korean conflict is started with contradiction and continue with the behavior and lastly the attitude. So for the contradiction, as mentioned before, the contradictions of the Korean Peninsula conflict originated from the incompatible goals on the unifications. The North Korea has the ambitions to unify with the South Korea by military means, yet the US presence in the peninsula is halted their ambitions and their dream to unify the Korean Peninsula and threaten their national security. Thus, the North Korea take the further step to develop the nuclear weapon, which is strongly condemned by the South Korea. Well, in the behavioral perspective, the North Korea is having a provocative behavior and aggressive behavior. For instance, they had launched several attacks towards the South Korea, such as the assassinations of the former South Korea President Park Chung-hee. So for the South Korea, their behavior is less offensive and usually taken a very engagement policy. And their policy is more focused on the preventive strategy while they don't forwarding and mostly in the situations of defense, but they will counterattack when the situation is necessary. Then we move to the element of the attitude of both Korea in resolving the conflict. Undeniable, the both Korea want the peace, but the North Korea attitude in achieving the peace is intervening with its regime security. And North Korea has strongly emphasized the need to terminate the U.S. hostile policy in the Korea Peninsula, which perceived as a paramount security for the North Korea. So in contrast to that, the South Korea conflict resolution is formed at the prerequisite for the North Korea to denuclearization. In conclusion, the Korean conflict is a very complex conflict which is difficult to resolve as it tasted the patience of all involved parties in resolving the conflict. And for that, it is necessary for the dialogue of the Inter-Korea Summit to continue, as so far the dialogue is the approach that so little progress in improving the inter-Korean relations. Also, the needed to foster economic cooperation in the two Koreas and by increasing their reliance on the economic and to strengthen their relationship. So this is all for me. Thank you for watching the video.